First, I need to tell you that the demo of ZeroSpace has been extended and you can still play it. Second, I consider it to be a complete RTS experience, something we rarely get these days. And third, that it brings a fresh game mode, which will hopefully keep us as players interested long past we finish its campaign or get bored from playing skirmish or multiplayer matches. So what makes me think this is a complete RTS game experience, despite ZeroSpace's planned early access release on July 20th instead of a full release? Well, simply put, the amount of content and features it brings.
Excellent work, Leggett. The Black Watch will take it from there.
Even just this demo has narrative-driven storytelling campaign missions with a developed cast of characters and cinematics. Then there are skirmish and custom matches versus AI with a huge array of different options and maps, combined with the special sauce of Mutators. Besides that, you can play in multiplayer 1v1s or 2v2s, or co-op survival matches with friends or AI. Last but not least, you have the Galactic War mode, which is a persistent, cooperative campaign where you pick a faction for which to fight for, and every battle fought helps your faction overall war effort. Now let's go through it feature by feature. Starting with campaign missions, we are able to play in the demo and the roadmap, which promises another 10 campaign missions on top of the 3 from the demo. In addition to more missions, the early access campaign will feature a customizable ship layer and multiple endings. This is in addition to features like companions, faction reputation, meta progression, and just like in Mass Effect, which these game developers are taking inspiration from, character relationships which will influence gameplay. Since I already replayed this initial mission of the campaign half a dozen times across multiple development versions of ZeroSpace for the past several years, I was pleasantly surprised by its newest version in the demo. I was welcomed by a much darker and more atmospheric map with the Protectorate faction, which had a serious makeover across their units, characters, and overall design. Even the UI icons and hero powers were different. It was a change for the better, most likely due to the new arrivals into the Starland studio that I told you about in my previous videos. The scripting across the map and mission was more on point, dialogues faster, and camera angles followed both the action and characters in a manner that kept the story moving forward and pointed in the right direction to keep the player oriented towards his next goal. The darker atmosphere made it harder for new players to figure out where the high ground is and use their jump jet advantage over Grell units. But we can look at it as a good thing, because better opportunities come from better map scouting and awareness instead of being handed to the player on a silver platter.
We were ordered to bring any survivors to the LZ.
The RPG aspect kicks in between these missions with an opportunity to not only get to know your brothers and sisters in arms better, but to connect with them through conversations with multiple choices. This is also part of the campaign where the development budget hits the ceiling, so to speak. The cutscenes still jump around between several underlying versions, subtitles go outside the range of the screen, you can feel the missing sequences between characters which needed to be said to make the encounters more human and engaging. But alas, this is not a AAA production and doesn't have the budget for it. You really have to properly manage your expectations, and it's better to be amazed by what you don't expect than to expect everything and get disappointed. To keep this low on spoilers for those who might not have played through these missions, I won't go too far into the rest of them, except to say that I very much like the new direction and overall quality of the single player campaign aspect. The one gameplay feature that sounds really good in theory, but which felt very cumbersome in practice, was the customization before the third mission. But I am sure that when I see its fourth or fifth iteration, I will have only words of praise for it like I have for the initial missions now. Even in just these 3 missions, there are many hints to several side stories, character origins, and factions inside factions. The good stuff, you know? What I particularly like is how the demo offers to get you into the MMORTS type of game mode called the Galactic War right after the last mission. It is exactly this mode that I believe gives ZeroSpace an edge over every other new and upcoming RTS game out there, and probably over most games you and I already played a dozen times over by now. There are several things which help to make this game mode a place not to only spend your time in, but to bring your friends over too. You fight for your chosen faction, your wins contribute to the overall war effort. You can see the map change based on the effort put in by each faction's players. The devs plan to expand its content with new commanders, mission types, even events and seasons. There is meta progression and, from what I understand, some way for viewers and followers of content creators who play in this mode to get in on the action together. These missions are usually based on the same ideas but have different execution, objectives and scripting, so there is good variety and you won't get bored fast from playing them. With the AI on your side it's not ideal, but with other players it is more enjoyable. Overall, it is a fun game mode and I see a lot of potential for it to draw in a bigger audience and keep them playing, which should help to stabilize the player base and the inevitable drop when most players go through the campaign. This is precisely why you get offered to start to play in the Galactic War game mode right after the final campaign mission. Another way to play which helps to keep players interested in an RTS for a long time is custom games with a lot of options. And this is precisely what the devs of ZeroSpace have done. Not only is the map pool quite large, but there are some unique game modes hiding there. There is even a testing range map, where you have the testing tools unlocked and can spawn in units and buildings, give players anything you want, and change things on the fly. Perfect for testing and exploring the game and its units or mechanics. For those looking to PvP, the current offering of the demo was 1v1s and 2v2s with an available tutorial to get you started. Devs even organized a tournament with a big reward for the winner. But the real fun for most players is certainly playing against the AI's dozens of different difficulty levels and with the special sauce of Mutators. This is a huge list of different modifiers which change all sorts of game options, heroes, units, mechanics or buildings. It's almost a shorthand for making already custom matches into something that plays entirely different from what is normal. I personally didn't go crazy with these when I was trying out the survival mode, as I had yet to even get a feel for the newest version of this game mode in its basic form. It actually felt much harder now than in the previous iterations that I had tested out. I took the opportunity to try out a different hero than I usually use, and the Shadow Walk was an ability I had never used before. Leaving a mine behind while going into stealth felt like a perfect weapon for this game mode. The Mutator which I went for, which increased the firepower of the supply depot's missile launcher upgrade, was really the best thing I needed, especially as I kicked the Hornet's nest early and got my and my allies' base invaded in the first minutes of the mission. But being able to construct walls was a great find, and I expect it to be very useful in this game mode. Now my AI ally was making some strange choices and starting to solo enemies with just his hero, and while trying to save him I got myself into trouble. The Grell on this map are no pushovers, and you have to use both the environment and its red exploding barrels and your HQ's cannon to your advantage. The night time when the horde starts to attack in force is quite well done and feels amazing, so I definitely suggest you try out this game mode. Just don't do what I did and pull an enemy you can't handle. To say I got wrecked would be an understatement. Anyway, this was a lot of fun, and please do share your own experience from the demo. I know you had bugs like the cursor disappearing and poor performance, but do know these are not widespread issues or unknown ones. They are being worked on. Thank you for watching and happy gaming!